Hello and welcome to Light Body Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Lara May, and today we have with us Tara Wiskow, an intuitive healer, energy coach, and life reinvention expert who helps women break free from internal blocks, energetic clutter, and outdated identities so that they can create the body, life, and relationships they desire. After losing 220 pounds naturally and healing deep emotional wounds, Tara now guides others through transformational shifts using modalities like NLP, integrated energy therapy, theta healing, and intuitive coaching. She specializes in helping women reclaim their power, release shame, and embody their truest selves through aligned action and deep energetic clearing, releasing, and healing. Welcome.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Lara, for having me. And I always love hearing my bio reread. It just reminds me of who I have become, and it's a beautiful reminder.
Well, tell us about your journey a little bit and how you came to be providing this amazing culmination of services for clients and helping them along their journey.
Yeah. So truly, I think it's so important to start where it originated. And if we're honest, it could have originated in past lives, if you believe in past lives, right? Like it can go so far back. However, in this lifetime, for me, it truly started to fester at the age of 8 when I found out that the dad that I thought was my dad, in fact, all of a sudden, in a split second, became my stepdad. And I had another dad that had chosen not to be in my life. He didn't want to have anything to do with me. And so learning that very young caused me to begin to shape shift. That's what I call it. I was trying to be whoever I felt I needed to be in order to always remain loved, wanted. And in the process of shape shifting, at the same rate of trying to be who I thought I had to be, I was seeing all these differences about myself. I had a mom and a dad and 2 sisters that had blonde hair and blue eyes. And then there's me. And for those that can't see me, I have brown hair and very dark brown eyes. And so I also was finding these discrepancies in likeness in how I talked, how I laughed, the foods that I liked. Literally everything seemed to be different about me. And so there is where disruption really started, because I was disconnecting from who I'd always been in order to be who I thought I had to be. And so I'd spend a lot of time in the mirror trying to like mimic people and talk like them or act like them. And I just became obsessed with showing up in any capacity that was necessary to show me that people liked me when I was like that. And so naturally, when you do this, and this is common, this all like for most women start at the age of 12. At that point, this is where we are very commonly finding that we're no longer allowing ourselves to speak our truth or to wear the clothes we like or to admit liking things that we like, because we've spent so much time wanting to fit in. And so this naturally, at this point in my life, as years progressed, it became a point where I completely lost myself. I think that's the only way that it can be said is I was completely lost in my life. And at 16, I met a guy that I knew was going to change everything. I was married at 17. I was a mom. Engaged at 17, married at 20. I was a mom at 21. And by the age of 28, I was a mom of 3 boys. I was divorced and I was 338 pounds. It just all happened rapidly. And that is where the true pinnacle started for me. Some people call it the dark night of the soul. I just think it was that, or it's just a pinnacle moment in my life where I needed to shift my identity. I needed to what I now call unravel. And it happened in a lot of different ways of eating disorders, starvation, deprivation, being very mean and cruel to myself, and eventually led to suicide. And after 3 suicidal attempts, my middle son saved my life, and everything changed that day. Everything shifted. I realized that I had to learn to love myself as much as I love my boys. And when I said that to myself in that moment, I realized that is the only thing I'd never done in my attempt to lose weight or to even feel good about myself. I had never loved myself in the process. I had done anything that was negative because that was my belief. You push harder, you get meaner, you get more determined, and you just break people more. And then finally the evolution happens and this life transformation occurs. And in that moment where I was at the bottom of the bottom, I realized for the first time it was okay to love myself. I could love myself out of that place that I was in. And that's what I started doing. I started looking in the mirror completely naked. And I could not look at myself. I learned to love my feet for a very long time. And then I moved to my ankles. And then I moved to my knees and my thighs and my belly and my breasts and my chest. And finally, after continuously doing mirror work every day, standing in the mirror, looking at a part of me saying, I love you. I'm proud of you. I'm grateful I get to be you. You're amazing. And admitting that I wasn't yet happy with how I looked, and knowing that I had to love that woman regardless of whether I was happy with her body or not, because that was what was going to bring me out of the situation. And that is exactly how I went from being 338 pounds to losing 220 pounds. That gave me the ability to start implementing exercise, eating healthier, choosing an entirely different lifestyle for myself, because I shifted my identity. I shifted it and I became the woman that I wanted to be. And just like everybody's life and everybody's experience, we evolve and we continue to grow and we change. And that led me into becoming a weight loss coach. I've spent 13 years helping women learn that loving themselves and having self-worth really is the missing pieces in the puzzle. And eating more food is what we need to do in order to lose weight. And then in 2023, it'll be 3 years in June, I lost my sister to cancer. In not even 6 months after her diagnosis, she was gone. That was the next moment that led me into this, becoming an intuitive healer. It was her guidance. It was her guidance that brought me into meditation and brought me into healing and helped me realize that this has always been my calling. I just wouldn't let myself see it. And it moved me into learning who I've always been at my core and doing the work of being my most authentic self. Because even though I'd lost all that weight and changed my life, my internal world was still complete chaos. I was still struggling with the desire to want to purge, eat and binge eat and then purge the food. I was still struggling with some days random suicidal ideation popping in on my tough days. There was still so much chaos and feeling like so much was missing in my life. And losing her and following the path of identity shifting again shifted my identity and was a full circle moment of bringing me truly home. And led me into helping women step into their authenticity and realizing that we try so many things and it doesn't work. And the reason why it doesn't work is not because we're necessarily doing it wrong or that we're not good enough or we're broken. It's just that we have so much energy in our body that is blocking our ability, whether it's stagnant energy that's ours from trauma that we experienced in childhood or we brought from past lives or is passed down generationally, whether it's other people's energy that we've taken on and it has blocked our body from that energetic flow and we're lost. We can't break through what we're trying to break through because we're literally energetically blocked and we need to heal. And that has become my identity and will, I believe, remain my identity moving forward.
I love how you sort of use this word identity.
Mhm.
and to describe the different phases of your life. And um, so, how does someone know if they're living in what I'll just use the quotes that you provided for me, an expired identity? Because I think that's a very unique term. I mean, there's a myriad of words that we could use to describe what we're talking about, but these are very specific, and I think it's important. And it's no accident. So let's talk about that. Let's flesh that out a little bit more.
Yeah. Expired identity is what I termed living in a life that no longer feels like it's your life. And it happened because I continued to have these conversations with friends or with myself or in my journaling. I continued to say, I feel like I'm not living the right life. I feel like something's missing. I feel like I've not found my purpose. Why is it that I can't figure out who I'm supposed to be and nothing just feels right? These were the conversations and the words that I was continuously saying. And I realized as I went through healing, as I sat in and I started doing neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, releasing limiting beliefs and uncovering these negative emotions within me, doing the timeline therapy, through that process, I realized that I was living in an expired identity, meaning that who I was showing up as every single day is an old version of me that had learned how to survive. The habits that I was doing, the things that I was saying, the beliefs that I was believing were old beliefs and habits and ways of showing up that worked at that time of my life. It got me through what I needed to get through, and it had expired. It was no longer needed. I didn't need to show up like that. I didn't need to feel. So, for example, in a relationship that was extremely abusive, I wasn't in that relationship anymore. However, I was still showing up like the woman that was.
That's a
That's an
beautiful
expired,
example.
yeah, an
Yeah.
expired identity. I believed that my now husband, who would struggle to hurt a fly on the wall, was still that man that I, or not still that man, was that man that I was with. And so I allowed that gentleman, I can't even give gentleman, but whatever, identity to all of a sudden come into my husband and believe that they were one and the same, and they were not. That's because my identity was expired. I think
Gotcha.
that's a great way. Or
Yeah.
even in weight loss, right? That belief that I was still a binge eater who then purged food, that's an expired identity because that's not who I am. But when stress would emerge and come into my life, I'd go back to that identity and then I'd feel frustrated because I'm like, but that's not me. Why do I feel like I have to do this? Why do I feel like this is who I am? I don't want to do that anymore. And I'd
Right.
feel like I'm supposed to do it, yet I didn't want to.
Yeah.
That is expired identity.
I actually think this is a beautiful, could also be attributed to the concept of alcoholism or an addict in
Mm.
general. I mean, I love the framework of, the big book and those programs, but
Yeah.
I've always felt like that label of I'm an addict and I'll always be an addict is kind of a disservice, because I believe in the power and the ability of transformation and transmutation and moving on, and that we can change who we are if we really want to.
Yep.
And so I feel like sort of that one piece of holding on and that mantra of the I am, whatever that is,
Right.
is actually a disservice, because that phrase of I am is so powerful, and you can totally reframe and change who you are if you want to. Like, we
Yes.
have free will, we have choice, we have that power.
Agree.
So yeah. Okay, cool. I love that.
Thank you.
So, you talked about it a little bit, but are there more signs or more clues that we might be in one of these expired identities that you feel like maybe we should bring light to help people sort of maybe have that aha moment today?
Yeah. There's so many, and of course it's unique. And so I'll
Sure.
just bring a lot in. So as I alluded to, feeling like you are being pulled to do things that don't feel right. They just don't feel right anymore. That is one of the biggest signs. Also, irritation, frustration, sadness, feeling like you're tired, hopelessness. And, sometimes people will say, isn't that what depression is? And yeah, sometimes an expired identity can feel like it's depression because you're living as somebody that is no longer in alignment with who you want to be. And how I look at this is you're saying, like, you're looking in a mirror and saying, this is who I want to be, but there's no way I can ever be that person because I just can't get in there. I can't get through to that person. And so sometimes it truly can feel like what depression is given as symptoms because you're holding yourself hostage in being somebody that you do not have to be because of these beliefs that you're living behind, these energy blocks. So there's a lot, those are some very common signs that come in. Also feeling like you go into a situation that you used to love, like you would find so much excitement. And now when you're thinking about going, you're like, I just don't really want to go. I don't feel like this is the right place for me. I feel like, statements like, I feel like I've outgrown this. I feel like this is something I used to like, but maybe I've matured and because I just don't find it interesting anymore. Those are some really great thoughts that start to surface when you have an expired identity as well. Or people, spending time with people that once used to fill you up now drain you. You leave those situations feeling so yuck and so heavy, like all I could do right now is go home and take a nap. Or an old habit of, for me, binge eating all of a sudden surfaces and you have no idea where it came from. The only common fact or the only factor that could be brought in is that I spent time with somebody. This is important to do. What I call is journaling around, like situational journaling. So when you experience something, even if for the very first time, that feels out of sync with how you've been feeling, meaning if you get up in the morning and you're feeling empowered and you are lit up and you spend some time with somebody or in a situation and you leave feeling the exact opposite for no known reason, nothing bad happened, nothing rattled your world, but all of a sudden you went from being a 10 to a 2 on the emotional radar.
Mm-hmm.
We need to journal this, write that day down and say, this is what I experienced. Now, when does it happen again? When do you experience that again? What are the common factors that are coming in? Because that begins to give you evidence that you likely are living in an outdated energy or identity, that is giving you signs that this is something in your life that is expired and it's time to move on.
Yeah, beautiful. Do you think that we are born or when we incarnate in this world, like with a core identity or like a core self or how do you see that? Because we've talked a lot about like creating a new identity and identifying what's outdated for us or no longer resonates. But is this, I guess, let me rephrase the question. Do you see it more as like a constant transition, or is there an element of like coming back to who we truly are at our soul core self?
I truly believe that spiritually we never change. We remain the same spirit always. We come down into, so I see it as 3 different bodies, like mind, body, spirit, right? Obviously, as we've heard across the board, you could call it your programming, which is also your mind, and you can call it your physical, the body. The spirit, we're one and the same. I believe that our personality never changes. I believe that is a very common thing and always will be. And so when you're on this earth, when I pass, when my expiration date for this lifetime is up, I'm going back up to 7th plane, to heaven, whatever we want to call it, to each their own. And I am going to then look at which next lifetime I'm going down into. What programming body am I coming into? What meat suit, what physical body am I moving into? But at the spirit, that core person spiritually, that soul never changes, always stays the same. And that can be confusing too, because obviously if you're coming into the programming body, which I have found in all the work I've done, I've never, and it could be different for other practitioners, but in my work, when I am finding the root moment that you decided a belief to be true for you or a negative emotion to be true for you, I have never found it in the womb earlier than 3 months. And I do know in the work that I've done that when we incarnate into this lifetime, we come into the womb. Most times we are coming in that gestational period, but I've never found it to be any earlier than 3 months. So when we come into that programming body, we're in the womb. We are then getting things passed down generationally that were not ours. They're coming. So now we have that we've brought from past lives because we're our spirit. Now we get things coming in because we've come into this programming body, and this infant has these parents, and we've now received what's ever been passed down generationally. Then we move into being born, and we're in the physical form, living the life, experiencing the experiences, gathering all this data. We're trying to make sense of all this stuff. So it's very easy to get an outdated identity very quickly as we pass through life with just that explanation of who we are and how we manifest into who we are.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love that. Thank you for that clear. I was just curious.
I just love talking about it.
I want to transition a little bit and ask you to talk a little bit more about how the experience with your sister helped you move into your role as an intuitive energy practitioner. If that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I have always, like, my grandma growing up with her, she would always call, like, you have this sixth sense. She would always call it that, right? She's 90 years old. So that's what it was. Superstition. We would always talk about that. And I always had this keen interest in it. So being young, I would hear about ghosts, and I would know about the sixth sense and all of the superstition and horoscopes. And I just loved it. And as I got older, I would hear different things, and I felt like it was a bad thing to be part of, because just, being a child and hearing other people talk about stuff and hearing things but not knowing how to understand it, I started to think that it was bad, it was negative, it was fake. And so I told myself that I couldn't be that, because remember, I'm trying to be whoever people want me to be so they like, love, and keep me. So I'm saying, well, people talk negative about this, so you can't like this, you can't do that, you cannot at all accept that. Now I'm in my 30s and I'm training clients out of my gym in my home. I live in Minnesota. We have a sunroom. We don't need a sunroom in Minnesota. Let's be real. So I turned it into a gym, and I have this gal that shows up, and I trained her about 4 times. And all of a sudden she said, Tara, I'm going to tell you something, and it's going to be really weird. And I'm like, I really don't think anything is weird. You can tell me whatever. I'm an open book. She goes, okay, but it's going to be weird. I said, okay. She goes, when I drive into your yard, I see dead people everywhere. I'm like, wait, what do you mean there's dead? I'm looking outside looking for literal people, corpses that are laying on. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, no, not like that. They're spirits there. And I'm like, ghosts? And she said, yes. And I said, well, why are they here? And she said, because you call them in. They know that you can speak to them. I said, no, I can. She goes, oh, but you can. I said, I don't know what you mean. She goes, this will make sense one day. I said, okay, whatever, like, go on. I'm like, I'll love you, and we're just going to believe this. And so going on, and I start to just fall into it again a little bit, getting intrigued and interested. I keep shutting it down. And when I lost Trisha, I all of a sudden started to hear her talk to me. She would give me very clear messages. One was, I need you to tell mom to take my begonias off the front porch and bring them in for winter. Trisha loved begonias. That was her favorite flower. So I knew it was her. And I'd continue to get these messages, and I'd pass them on to loved ones. And finally, my mom said, you need to stop this. This is bad. You cannot be doing this. You are not doing a good thing for Trisha. You're not letting her cross over. But yet I knew she'd crossed over. I could see that she'd crossed over. I didn't know how I knew this, I
Yeah.
didn't understand how I could, but I knew she had.
Yeah.
And so I started to get the words identity shifting that would just pop up.
Mm.
I would find identity shifting on Facebook, on anywhere I was looking, identity shifting. And all of a sudden, a workshop came to me that I knew I had to be part of, and everything lined up, the timing, everything, it was like perfect. And I felt pulled for the very first time in my life. I felt like I had this like an umbrella inside my chest that was like pulling me to do this. And so I did. When we get to the end of a 3-hour workshop, we have about 30 minutes left. The woman says, we're going into a meditation. And my heart sank because I'd never been able to meditate, could never. And all of a sudden I heard, just try it one more time. And so I committed to trying one more time. I went into this meditation and I knew I had somebody that was like wrapping their arms around me and holding me. And for the first time, I literally went into a meditation awake, experiencing everything, the visuals, seeing, hearing. And as I was walking down this path, Trisha was on my left-hand side walking with me. And we get to this park bench and I sit down and my higher self comes on the right. And so the three of us are sitting there. And all of a sudden, my higher self says to me, I've waited a very long time for you, Tara. I'm so glad you're here. You are a healer. You have always been a healer, and the world needs you now more than ever. Now, I told you that I was having these conversations saying, I can't figure out who I'm supposed to be. Like, why can't I figure out my purpose? Something's missing in my life. In the minute that I heard that in that meditation, which probably was 30 seconds, felt like it was 5 hours of a meditation, I instantly knew who I was. Something downloaded in my body and I felt my whole body expand, and I instantly knew this is who I was. And I knew that this is who I had to be. And I went to look to the left to say to Trisha, like, did you know? And she was gone. And I looked back at my higher self and she said, she brought you here and now you leave on your own. And this is part of the ritual of choosing you. And I remember leaving that meditation crying the whole way down the path. And when I came back into the room, as I was directed to by the facilitator, I was bawling. I was bawling. I was celebrating that I found myself. I was celebrating that I'd finally allowed myself to come home. And I was heartbroken that I had to lose my sister to finally come home. And after that, I started to go to metaphysical shops, and I would go in and I would pick up crystals, like this crystal, and my, like, literally still my hand vibrates, my whole body vibrates, and I didn't understand it. So I started to research it and ask people and understand the different things. And then I learned. So I used my body as a vessel to learn about the chakras and then guides. And I started to learn and be guided through that process, which then led me to having the confidence to reach out and ask friends to allow me to do healings with them, and naturally just follow the process of becoming me.
Beautiful. I love that. That's so perfect. And I keep hearing the word ready and readiness. And I think this is so important for all of our listeners to like hear and understand too, that it's when we're ready. We've been through all the things, we've had our highs and our lows, and we make choices along the way, but there's an aspect of when we're ready for certain things, then they come into us, sort of like when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yes.
I think, I don't know, I think it's just such a profound thing. And maybe it'll allow ourselves to have a little bit more grace with ourselves, instead of saying like, oh, I lived this whole part of my life and I didn't know this. How could I not know this? Or like, beating ourselves up about it. It's like, no, that's okay. That was actually part of it. That's part of the journey. That's part of the sacred contract, if you will, for us to learn to say yes, to open up, and to be ready.
I love that. And I think it's so true. I mean, I know it's true. And I feel like every part of our journey is purposely put in place for us because it's meant to grow us and evolve us and allow us to become who we are. And there is a mentor, Isabel Maxwell. She is just fantastic. She's a medium, and she does a lot of mediumship, but she's a great teacher in it. And she always talks about the fact that we choose our life experiences, even the difficult pieces. And that's a hard pill to swallow, to say, I chose this. This sucks. Why would I choose this? And we choose it for basic different reasons. We all do. Sometimes it's because we want to heal through this so it doesn't continue to follow us into the next lifetime. We want to actually evolve out of this. And so there's a lot of different reasons for it. So, and to your point, everything is placed on our timeline of life in the exact moment that it's meant to. And because we are spiritual beings living a human life, we will ignore those. We will ignore when it pops in, and we will do everything we can to avoid it and take detours around it. And then all of a sudden it's back there again later, because again, we're back on track. We've relaxed. We're not fighting it anymore. We're in the groove of living life, and bam, all of a sudden we're like, what in the world? Why is this? I thought I was done with this. It's back. Well, it's because you got comfortable and you let go of fighting it. And so it's resurfaced because you have to go through it.
Yeah.
And so often we continue to tell ourselves, but I'm not ready. I'm not ready. You are. Anything that lands on your heart is landing on your heart because it's meant for you and only you. And that's the moment that you're ready for it, because it's coming in at that time.
You just have to be willing to say yes.
Yes.
So that's the next piece, for readiness and then willingness.
So true. And that's a hard one, to be willing to say yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I mean,
true.
Otherwise we just keep labeling it Mercury retrograde.
Yeah.
It's Mercury retrograde. No, actually.
365 days a year, we have a Mercury retrograde. I've seen that word more now than I've ever seen it in my life. And maybe it's because I'm in the spiritual world more, or people are just using it as an excuse for their life imploding.
Yeah. Another excuse for us to give our power away instead of saying yes to our power and saying yes to our free will. And, that again, the willingness to move forward in a different path, a different trajectory, even if it's unknown, even if it's scary. There's another spiritual teacher that said, it's this or something better.
Yes. Yes. I love that you say it the way you just said it, giving our power away, because every time we use an excuse for why, and I have been a queen of excuses in my life. I mean, when you're 338 pounds, it's hard to deny that. And I'm not saying that judgmentally to anybody. I'm saying that for myself because I lived in excuses. And every time you use something outside of you as an excuse, you literally are saying that you are powerless, and you're choosing to believe you're powerless until you finally admit that it's an excuse and you choose a different route for yourself. You take your power back. And it's so empowering when you choose to see the power you have in yourself. And that's why I love what I do, because women start to realize, as we're releasing and clearing them, how much of them were living behind these false identities that weren't theirs. And they start to actually see that their slate has been cleaned. We're born, we would think that a baby comes into this world completely with a brand new clean mirror. It's not. There's fingerprints all over it because of generational things passed down, things from our life. And as we're clearing this out, women are looking at their mirror, their slate, and saying, for the very first time, I'm not seeing blotches all over. Like, they're seeing themselves for them. And they realize the power that always has been within them. They just didn't know that they could reach it and use it.
And or weren't given the permission, or given themselves the permission. I say that first part, given it by the outside world, as if we need that. We don't. But then the realization that, oh, I am the one that gives myself that permission. And again, the choice and the power to say yes or say no. It's, free will is beautiful and powerful. And, we need to, that's one of the classic human things. Our souls could be in the realm of love and light if they choose to, but they chose to come here for whatever reason. And it's a different reason for everybody, I think. With the one exception that I think there is maybe a universal contract of realizing and practicing unconditional love. I think
Yes.
that's especially this time, but I guess you could look back historically and say at any time because there's always been conflict on planet Earth. But, choosing instead of allowing our souls to just exist in the realm of unconditional love and it's easy and you don't have a choice because it just is that way.
Yeah.
You chose a level that was not there. And how do we get back to that?
Yeah. Which is oftentimes why we come, or if not all the time, I'm hearing that we come down to earth is to try to resurrect things in our life that have happened in the past so that we can get to that universal contract of love and live in love and light, because love heals all things. I mean, when I'm going into integrated energy therapy and I'm connecting in the seventh plane with Archangel Ariel, I am in my heart. I start in my heart with gratitude and love. I mean, that because love heals all things. That is the only element, the only thing that has been found to heal everything is love.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And
Yeah.
so it's such, you're absolutely hitting on such powerful things that we need to be aware of. And I love that you say permission, because like you're a girl after my own heart talking about that, because I speak about that all the time, that we wait for permission to be happy. We wait for permission to be ourselves. We wait for permission from the world, from external factors of the situation working out the way we want it to work out. Well, why wait for it to say yes when you can choose to say yes by taking action, or people in your life giving you permission to be happy? And we have to look in the mirror and see that we are the ones that we have to take that permission from and give ourselves permission to do that. You naturally have permission to be happy and to live life to the fullest and be your most authentic version. You have that out of the gate. As soon as you cry your very first cry, you already have that permission.
Yeah.
You don't have to receive it from anybody.
Yeah. Yes. Beautiful. Preach. I love it. Let's talk about your process that you use. Unravel, upgrade, up level. So walk us through that and flesh that out some. Tell us more.
Yeah. So it is called the Bitchin' Way. And for references, right? Bitchin' is spelled BTCHYN, and it's an acronym for my company, Be the Change You Need. And so, and it's my vibe, bitchin' vibe, like totally is it. And I knew the Bitchin' Way was my process. And this is how we go from who we are currently to become who we desire to be and who we've always meant to be. So the very first phase is the unravel. And the unravel is really the unbecoming. And I instantly just have energy moving through my whole body as soon as I even say the word. I look at it as clearing and flushing out all that is within us that no longer belongs, the limiting beliefs, the negative emotions, the habits that we've lived behind, the programming, the conditioning. We need to clear this all out. And the reason that we need to do that is if you just change your habits, you're still living behind the same identity and being the same person that you've always been. So those habits that you're trying to integrate, they can't stick because those are habits that belong to somebody else, not who you are right now. And so we need to unbecome from being who we think we have to be, who we believe we've only been given permission to be. So we need to unbecome from that. So that's a clearing out. We clear, we do meditations, we do activations, we release limiting beliefs, we do so much healing. And the most beautiful part that I find my women, when I know that they fully unraveled, they say, I feel so light and I feel like I don't even know if anybody is in me anymore. I feel empty. And at the same time, if that sounds scary, it is so amazing. Because it's like, and this will sound grotesque, but for real, if you have a plugged toilet that you cannot get unplugged and it's been plugged for, let's say, for whatever reason, if you live in Minnesota, it's been frozen for 4 weeks. All of a sudden, we have unraveled all of the plumbing and you have free flowing water. That's what it feels like to all of a sudden be unraveled and no longer be clogged by everything that does not belong to you, outdated identities, all of that. So that's the unravel. Once we've cleared you out, we've cleaned your slate, we move into the upgrade. The upgrade is where we begin adopting and becoming and knowing who we desire to be. We start bringing in the new versions, the new ways of being. We start speaking a different language. We start trying different things. I like to say, try it on, see how does it feel? How do you respond in this situation now compared to in the past? And how does that feel? And we really start to implement new programming. And we begin to update that programming with a new way of showing up and getting to discover what feels good. What do we like and what don't we like? And we get to just pull and release and let go and be like, okay, this doesn't feel good. I don't like this. This feels good. And so it's really a lot of discovering who you truly always have been, but you've never been allowed to present her to the world. And so it's like being on training wheels. You are on training wheels and you're going through life trying these new things and discovering these new things. It's really enlightening. It's beautiful. It's like being in the beginning stages of a brand new relationship with somebody that you're learning all about. And as time goes on, you develop this connection and this kindred spirit with, and you've healed your inner child wounds, not all of them, but the ones that are prominently ones we need to for what you're wanting to accomplish in the program. Also have this great connection with your higher self who already is where you're desiring to go. And so you're trusting her. You're allowing yourself to be led by her, which then brings us to the up level. And the up level is where we learn embodiment. We learn to embody the woman as if we already are her. We go from 3D consciousness, which is very much being in the state of life is out to get me, nothing ever works out, life sucks, very much victim consciousness is where 3D is. We're in that right when we start to unravel. To being in that 4D, 5D, where we are living, knowing that life revolves around us. We are important enough to say, I am the most important person in my life. I love myself, unapologetically love myself. I choose myself. And because I choose myself, everybody in my life benefits from that. And we really prioritize self-care. We prioritize giving ourselves permission to show up as ourselves. We set boundaries in making sure that those boundaries are in place so that we remain sovereign. We're not letting people come into our life and squash us and take our power away. We remain in our power. I think, if I were ever to rename it, I would say it's the Empress stage. It's the Empress stage because we've become the Empress of our life. And that doesn't mean that we no longer need people in our life because we're humans and connection is part of life. We just love openly, authentically, and we receive love. We receive the love that is the best kind of love that we deserve. And at the same time, we never allow our love for ourselves to be deprioritized for anybody else in our life. So it's really just about she rises. You rise into becoming the woman that you were created to be, and you no longer put her in a box and hide her, regardless of what anybody thinks, says, or feels.
Yeah. And I just want to clarify that last piece too, because I feel like sometimes this is where, aspects of the spirituality world sort of get judged and, maybe, I will just leave it at that. But this is like this last piece that you spoke of, the 4D to 5D piece is when we are in alignment with love and light. So this is not from a place of self-centeredness or selfish.
No.
I mean, it is an aspect of selfishness, but in the most like loving piece, because what we put out is what we get back. And so if we show up with love, with light, with unconditional love, non-judgment, forgiveness for ourselves and others, then that's what we're going to put out into the world. And that's what's going to, reciprocate and grow. And so it's that level of, it's self-care, but I feel like it really should be the unconditional part. Like we should all do this, because on the surface, it might sound like a selfish or narcissistic or egotistical way to be and live, but really it's the most loving way that we could all possibly be, because then we show up better for everyone else we come in contact with, even those people that are rude to us on the street or do us wrong or betray us, we're able to still show up in those situations in the way of unconditional love, which again is like I feel like
Yep.
is part of all of our soul contracts. So
So
yeah.
true. I just heard too, and it was such great advice. It's like when somebody is wronging you, if you were to love them through that, it actually brings in more good into your life too. And it actually helps and heals that person rather than,
Mhm.
and I think that too, in that up level phase, as you're saying, is when you're being met with that angry person that is screaming in your face, you're calm and you're not allowing yourself to go to the old habits of self-sabotage or self-abandonment. You can stay rooted in that and you can continue to love yourself, and that love and light that you feel for yourself, it emanates out, it radiates out, and also can help that person to heal. And I
Yeah.
also like want to share is that a lot of my women that go through this program, somebody in their life may, and it's not all the women, but the ones that need it, somebody else in their life all of a sudden starts to open and fester as they're watching their mom or watching their sister or their wife go through this process of unbecoming and then becoming.
Mm-hmm.
Things in them start to fester and they start to heal and they start to feel things that they don't understand. And it's because the presence of her healing herself is naturally flowing, how that self-care is benefiting her and what she's exuding out into her space is shifting the people in her life in a beautiful way and bringing to light healing that they need.
Yeah.
And it's so to what you're saying, it's so very true, that love
Yeah.
and light aspect.
Yeah, I mean, it's the law of resonance of that, technically the
Yeah.
law of attraction,
Yeah.
like attracts like. So I love how like the quantum physics always comes back in, like all of these principles
Yeah.
are.
Right. Yes.
But yeah, so where should we go from here? I feel like we've talked about so much. We've brought I feel like so much wisdom in through this episode. So thank you so much. Let's talk about where people can find you, and let's go there.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And you're welcome. And thank you. Thank you for your feedback and you sharing. I feel like our conversation flowed so amazingly, and your advice accompanied with mine really did make it a powerful episode. So thank you for that. And as far as where people can find me, I think the best spot to start is at my website. This is where you'll find the connection to my social media links and just get to know a little bit more about me and what I do and see the free resources that I have available there. And so that's www.tara- like in a telephone number, Wiskow.com. And that again will bring you to my social media. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. I have my Bitch and Healing Collective Facebook group where I do intuitive readings, I do trainings. I'm very immersed in my community there of helping them through the process in uncovering what they need to uncover to become who they desire to be. So that's another place that you will find that I'm available there and where I work. And then my podcast, Be the Change You Need, is on Apple and Spotify.
Oh, beautiful. Wonderful. So all of these things will be on our show notes page, which is drlaramay.com/podcast. So if you're driving or walking or whatever, don't worry. We have the links for you. We'll put them all there. And then anything you would like to leave our listeners with today?
I would like to say that wherever you are in your life, I think as a whole, the world is feeling a sense of heaviness across the board. And I just want to ask if I can just drop right into your heart space where you are right now. And if you don't want that, that's okay. You can set in your mind and say, no, thank you. And you will not receive it. And that's okay. I'm totally okay with this. This is for those that feel ready to receive it. And I just ask if I can just drop right into your heart space. And if I can just bring in some love and light into your heart and just bring in this beautiful white healing light that will expand through your heart, coming into your whole chest space. And as I'm there, I'm just bringing in this knowing of love and feeling of love and presence of love. And I ask that this presence of love in your chest, that it flows all the way from the top of your head down to the bottom of your feet. You can take a deep breath in and exhale out and just allow that it will then flood your entire body. And my ask is that this gift from me to you is something that just calms you, calms your central nervous system, calms your mind, just gives you this sense of peace and freedom from the worry and freedom from the fear and freedom from whatever you feel like you're being encompassed with at this time. Just let you have a moment of peace and happiness and joy and freedom. And I leave you with that.
Beautiful. Thank you.
You are welcome. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Well, I'm just going to leave it there because there are no more words necessary. So we will catch you in the next episode.
Thank you.